We call this the Rebuilding Lives Coalition, RLC for short. Well, we are an organization of people who care about those that have been impacted by incarceration. And each one of us are doing a work, but we didn't know each other. And by working together, well, we can just offer hope and a future for those whose lives have been impacted by crime. We're made up of groups. One would be government. We're really under the authority of the Sheriff's Department. It was really their idea that we be able to go in and work with the prisoners to help improve their lives. And I began as a volunteer with Prison Fellowship. And as such, I was a team leader. I take 10 people in with me every Monday night. So some of the people here are those volunteers that go in. Prison Fellowship, the Gideons, different churches and organizations. Then we have not only the government and the volunteers, but we have also agencies like Goodwill Jobs Connection, and Anderson Interfaith Ministries. We have referral groups like Goodwill for Jobs and Alston Wilkes Society. Then we have the people that actually are housing men and women as they get out. Be like that include discipleship and rehabilitation, like the Haven of Rest. You've got the Freedom Center. Labor of the Fields is represented here today. Christ Central Ministries is up in Walhalla and in Pickens. You have groups from Greenville, Soteria Ministries, just all kinds of groups like that. And then you've got churches. One of the key elements is we have a group of pastors that are from different denominations, and they normally don't work with each other, speak with each other, but for this common cause, they are breaking down walls. And we have one group that are actually two Jewish ladies that have a ministry for the inmates' children. This is our first anniversary meeting. So, you know, we had the growing pains of first defining who we were, our purpose, building databases so that we know how to contact each other. We wanted to develop a resource to hand to the inmates when they get out of jail. They get one when they go in. They need to know who they can contact when they get out. We also want to do what you call a street card, and that would be anytime we see somebody in need, we would take the people represented here, plus every other service in Anderson that's offered to help with food and housing, transportation, meals, whatever, daycare, dental care. We put that all on a card, something that can be folded up and put in the back pocket and handed out. So that's something we'll just keep on working on. The whole idea is, Sheriff Skipper addressed this today, is that they want to express concern for those that are incarcerated, to first of all, just gather the information that's necessary to take before court and do what's just. And most of our inmates say the best thing that ever happened to them is to get arrested and get able to evaluate their lives and just sit down and think about where they're going. One of my greatest inspirations is a 19-year-old fella, or he was 19 at the time. He was facing 19 felony accounts. And one of our volunteers went in and just gave a message that while he was still in his sin, Christ died for him. And that was our motivation to reach him. And he, facing the back of the wall, said, I want to find out if this is real. And so he came here to this church and told us what was going on, and that really started this whole thing of going in and volunteering and trying to draw the resources together. Major Bryant's idea was to have a chaplain, that we have all these services going in but didn't know each other, wasn't coordinated. They said, we need one person to be that person. And it's not a paying position, but it opens the doors. Now I'm treated like an employee. I can walk behind the doors and I can follow up on the things that these volunteers start, and I can point them to the ones that can help and be more like a mentor while they're still there in jail, not just somebody preaching a Sunday school lesson to them. We've been meeting for a year. First it was monthly, but that was just too much of a load on me to always think of what we're going to do the next time. We developed 7 what I call action committees, and it would be administration, the advocacy, education, employment, housing, family, transportation, and the churches. And so we've had those things, but we never had time to meet, and so we reversed the order of our meeting. And today we're meeting first, and now we're going to get back together, and each one is going to say, this is what our goal is, this is what we plan to do. Then we'll hear from our main speaker who has been through it all and is doing the same thing in Charlotte. So I'm just excited to hear this chatter behind me and see people really engaged. And this time they're taking notes, and we're going to know what they've decided to do, and we're going to hold them accountable.
In Charlotte, I am the executive director of a housing program there, and I heard through a great friend of mine that they were having this meeting here today, and I thought maybe some of the things that we're doing there in Charlotte, being that we are neighboring states, could benefit here as well. And after having spoken to the director here at the facility, he was sharing with me some things that we could together maybe accomplish. It takes a community to raise a child, as they say, and it takes us all coming together for one common cause to bring together collaboratively all the things that we need. For instance, I provide housing, which I feel like is the #1 component, but I collaborate with a number of other people that provide a number of different things so that I can serve our clients holistically. That's most important, vitally important. That's the key word, collaboration, and it is very important to not only the inmates or the ex-offenders or the population that we serve, but to our communities as well, because it provides an element of safety, among other things that we do. And as we were just sharing there in the housing committee, what's most important in my view is housing. We can have all the other components, but if a person doesn't have what I like to call a home base, then it's hard for them to go out and exercise the other things such as, writing resumes and attending meetings and stuff of that nature when you have nowhere to live at night. So we provide housing as well as food to get them started. And that's what hopefully we can do is create continued collaboration with the state of South Carolina. We're currently doing some things in the Columbia area now, and I would love to see that expand up into the Upstate. It's imperative that we all come to the table and we bring what it is that we have to offer and keep the whole thing saturated in spirituality. We have to remember God in all this. That's where I find my success. We have a 10% recidivism rate in FAVAR Ministries versus a 67 to 70% nationally, and I would accredit that first and foremost to God, but then secondly to the population. Because if the men don't want to do the right thing, then that's not going to bring our numbers down. It's going to take our numbers up. And that's what I express to them all the time.
The coalition is so important because it gives us the opportunity to know that when we go into the prison and visit with these gentlemen, that we have resources for them to tie into, whether it be Labors of the Field or Children's Ministry or other churches that we can tie into. And because the coalition has only been in existence for over a year, we're just in the groundwork, if you will, of putting things together, of maps of opportunities and a covering of opportunities for men and women in Anderson County. The breakout session that we were a part of was in the housing department, and our speaker, the FAVAR Ministry of Charlotte, was so instrumental of talking about some things that we had never thought about necessarily, because some of us, our ministry and Labors of the Field are part of a 501c, and that enables you to go to resources of banks and housing and realtors and offer them an opportunity to give back to ministry that will be beneficial for all. And so also within the housing community that we were working with, we heard about Jumpstart, which is a ministry in the Spartanburg area. Now they're in many of the prison communities where they literally go in and train the men while they're still incarcerated and provide them housing when they come out. So the housing committee is just on the ground floor, if you will, of trying to build resources of the different housing that's available for the men and women.
A little over a year ago, Kent McGahey and I sat down when he volunteered to be our chaplain and religious services coordinator. We readily identified the fact that there were a lot of services available to inmates, but these services were sometimes obscure and hard to find for the inmate. And so that's when we started sitting down and talking about what way can we get those services in the inmates' hands and find a way to provide some housing, some transportation, jobs, help with alcohol and drugs, and all the things that it would take to get that inmate on a more productive path when they leave our facility. The benefits for our county are, if inmates are returning to the community, creating the same havoc, committing the same crimes, the same victims, that's an issue, and that's an issue we want to address. It's not anything that can be solved overnight. That's what I want everybody to understand. This is not a simple fix, but we had to take ownership in this and start looking for ways to help this issue. We're on the ground floor of that effort. We're on the ground floor of trying to provide services that will help an inmate have the proper footing they need when they are released from the detention center. And if you release an inmate that has no housing, that has no transportation, that has no employment, the likelihood of returning to crime is very high. So we do want to address those issues. Like I say, we're on the ground floor. This is a startup project, but I think that we're headed in the right direction. Anyone who wanted to contribute to this or volunteer can certainly contact Mr. Kent McGahey. We have a number of religious groups and volunteers who come into our detention center. I think at this point we're probably looking for more organizations to help inmates who are released than volunteers inside the detention center. We're pretty full with that right now, but other groups that want to help an inmate who is released, whether it be religious or drug abuse or any other help, they can contact Mr. Kent McGahey at the detention center.